Foreman,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
And I'm a yes, and the minutes stand approved 8-0. Is there any correspondence?
We have none, Your Honor.
Does any council member have any correspondence? I see none. Public hearings. We have a public hearing tonight on the City of Champaign Stormwater Quality Program. I'd like to open this public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide an opportunity for all persons interested in commenting on the adequacy of the City of Champaign's Stormwater Quality Program. An annual public hearing is a requirement of the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Systems, NPDES permit, which is administered by the Illinois EPA. The NPDES permit and the last 5 Stormwater Quality Program annual reports are posted on the city's website. The annual reports describe the control measures the city uses to enhance and improve stormwater runoff before it is released to the waters of the state of Illinois. Notice of this public hearing was published on August 22nd, 2020 in the Champaign-Urbana News Gazette. If anyone desires to express his or her views regarding the program, please raise your hand and be recognized. Councilmember Pianfetti, do you see any members of the public who want to speak on this public hearing?
At this time, I do not see any hands raised.
That closes the public hearing. Persons interested in, maybe it doesn't close it, but for this evening, persons interested in making written comments on the program must do so no later than 10 days after this meeting. Written comments may be directed to Alex Nagy at the City of Champaign Public Works Department, 702 Edgebrook Drive, Champaign, Illinois, 61820. I now declare the public hearing closed. Thank you for your comments. Before the clerk calls the first council bill, I've been informally advised that the city attorney has some remarks he would like to make. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Councilmember Bruno. I have remarks about 2 council bills. One council bill is not on the agenda. It was actually continued to this agenda from the 4th of August. It was a council bill concerning the purchase of some software, Trackit software. At the time of the council meeting on August the 4th, there were issues with the contract revolving around the sale of the company to a different company, wrong name on the contract. So we asked the city council to postpone it till tonight. It should have been on the agenda, so we would have asked you to postpone it again. Inadvertently, it didn't make it onto the agenda. However, the council has provided for just an instance where something is postponed to a meeting and doesn't make it on the agenda. And the rule says that it is simply continued until the next agenda. In other words, it will appear on the agenda for September the 15th. So I wanted to make sure that you knew if you were expecting this to be on the agenda, why it wasn't, and that it will be on the agenda, hopefully, if all the contracts are straightened out, on the 15th of September. It'll be on there no matter what on that date. So that's something that's not on the agenda, and I just want to explain why. The other item is an item that is on the agenda that I wanted to provide just a short explanation for before we got to it. And this concerns Council Bill 2020-94. This concerns insurance broker services. Councilmember Bruno astutely called our attention to an ambiguity that was in the contract that was attached to the council bill. That concerns payment to the insurance broker. There's a bifurcated payment that should have appeared in there, and it was ambiguous, at least, because of that. So the city buys several different products The largest by far is the health insurance for the city. And 20 years ago, we went to, rather than a commission basis, we went to a flat fee basis of $40,000. So it's been that price for a long time. The notion being that it was a good idea to not reward a higher price, but to keep it stable for the broker services. The other employee benefit products, dental, vision, some long-term care, disability, those are traditionally on a commission basis. That's traditionally how brokers are paid. Those are rolled into the premiums. And this is not crystal clear in the agreement, so we're going to clarify that. It'll only take the insertion of a few words, but we wanted to clarify it for the city council. We can do that because when the city council approves an agreement, you usually approve it, and in this case, it is in substantially the same form as attached. There's occasion when we have to make minor adjustments for reasons like this because something is not crystal clear in the agreement, and we'll do that. It doesn't require any action by the city council, but we wanted to provide that information in advance of the vote. If there's any questions on either of those, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Fred, I do have questions, but I don't know if it would be better to just ask them as soon as we've called that bill and get into the technical questions aspect of the bill. Because
maybe that would be the better place.
We might drift away from the topics you brought up.
If it concerns this one particular item of information I gave, now would be a good time. Otherwise, probably wait until the bill is called.
Well, I have technical questions about this one particular item, but I'll open it up for any other council members who want to ask technical questions to the city attorney at this time. I see no hands. And for the purposes of the 8 of us, it would have helped me as a chair if you'd raise your hand or give me a visual signal if you want to speak. But my question for you, city attorney, is in that paragraph, which I called to staff's attention or asked about earlier today or yesterday, and I'm referring to Exhibit A, page 1, paragraph 3, entitled Compensation, where the language on the contract we were being asked to adopt tonight says, USI will be compensated for the services outlined in this agreement through the payment of an annual fee by the client. The annual fee will be $40,000 payable to and invoiced yearly on the 1st of September. The annual fee payable to the client is in addition to any commissions received from insurance companies. Then they talk about
that is
okay. And at your request, we will provide you with a detailed statement regarding our compensation on your account and the way the compensation is calculated. My question to you is, that's what the language has been in the existing contract?
That's, I believe, the agreement that's been in there for 20 years. The reason that it shifted back and forth just a little bit, and I think it was clear at one point in time going back 20 years ago, we used to when we awarded brokerage services buy everything from the same broker. We used to buy health, dental, vision, disability, and some other insurance products. Then sometime, and I haven't had time to track down when, we bifurcated that. We gave some of the business to a different broker, dental vision in particular. And this, I think this clause read slightly differently. I don't know when it got changed. There's been change in personnel of the people who've been reviewing this contract. So I take full responsibility for that. It should be clear what's the $40,000 for and what the rest of the commissions go toward.
Well,
in other words, it's traditional. It's traditional in many in the insurance market for brokers to be paid by commission. 20 years ago, when we were looking at that, we thought, well, gosh, this is not much impetus for the health insurance broker, especially health insurance, because that's the real big nut in this group. We should pay them a flat fee for their services. We don't want to encourage them to go out and get a higher price to increase the commission. That's a big, and it was quite a deviation from industry practice at the time. But we thought it was appropriate. The broker at the time went along with it. I mean, we did this in mid-contract, and the broker, who was the broker at the time, went along with it. And so we've been doing it ever since. I think we've saved a lot of money. I think Larry Krause, if he was here, he'd say we'd save probably half the commission in the health insurance area.
If this language is in our current contract under which we're operating today, I hereby request that we make a written request to our broker that they reveal to us the amount of commissions received. That'll be simple enough if they say 0, but let's ask them to verify that in writing. Otherwise, I don't know how we would have any way of knowing whether they also received commissions. Is that fair enough? Is that too much?
That's fair enough. I think there's language. I think there's language in there that provides for that, and that's why we did that, just to double check that. I don't foresee any problem with that, and we can report back to the council concerning that.
Well, it's a fairly simple request I'm making. Is the paragraph purports to say that upon request they will provide with a detailed statement. I, as a council member, hereby make that request. I'd like to see a detailed statement as many years back as is relevant. And it should take them a minute or two to just say, we've received no commissions, sign their name to it under penalty of perjury, and we move on. But, you know, I'd like to have, we're talking about a lot of money here. I'd like to have somebody put it in writing.
Correct.
That's my technical question. Oh, I have a technical question, but not about the matter that you talked about. So I'll bring it up once the council bill's been called.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to address City Attorney Staven's remarks regarding this ordinance before we call the ordinance? I see none, so will the clerk please call the first ordinance?
Council Bill number 2020-94, a resolution approving an agreement with USI Insurance Services, LLC for employee benefits insurance brokerage and consulting services.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any council members that have any technical questions? Councilmember Bricks.
Yeah, I was just curious. We're really looking at the budget. We're right in the middle of COVID. We're looking for ways to potentially save money. And there isn't any indication on what each of the RFPs say about what those flat fees are. Was there anybody that had a better flat fee than $40,000? Is that typically what it is? And is there a reason why this wasn't in our report?
I can address that. The proposed fee for USI at $40,000, as the City Attorney Staven said, had been that way for quite some time, and is about half what they would get paid if they were on commission. Yes, there were a couple of proposals that proposed a lower fee for health insurance. It was a very small amount. One was $4,000 less, one was $10,000 less. But the level of services and the level of support that those brokers proposed were not as good as the services and support that USI could provide us.
Okay, and then with you provided a matrix, and so for those who had lower or for those that we had questions, were any references contacted? And if so, to address any of those concerns, to see if maybe it wasn't clear from the RFP, and just to get some additional information to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples.
I didn't call references on a couple of them because we already do business with them, and we're quite familiar with their services and capabilities. And I don't know that calling references would have changed how we looked at it. Again, because we've known them for quite some time.
Okay, so you don't think there's any way, even if you've known them, you don't think anything is potentially changed? That it would make it worth it to just check references to see if anything is changed? And just, yeah.
In the areas where we would have checked references, the scores were pretty similar for Barham Benefits Group and for USI. I think that they both scored highly. So I don't think that checking references would have changed any of that. They got the most points that you could get in that category.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Stock.
Hi, Larry, could you talk a little bit, just explain the things, because what's the difference between experience and references versus expertise and personnel, and what the scoring, in my mind, my own definition, my mind would say that those would score pretty similarly, but they didn't. So obviously I'm missing a definition somehow.
I think the expertise part of it was to look at the capabilities of the brokers and their experience with health insurance plans similar to the city's. The second part of it was, what kind of resources do they have? What kind of backups do they have? How many people would be involved in the overall management of the city's health plan? And what ancillary services are provided?
Thank you. This question may go beyond you. It maybe hit the city manager level. I don't know. But so we do local preferences for purchasing, for contracts, construction things, and so forth. Do we do any sort of local preference whatsoever for this kind of purchase, for lack of a better word?
I did include I did weigh the fact that 3 of the proposers, USI, Barham Benefits Group, and IPG, have local offices. The 4th was the Horton Group, which didn't have a local office. And that's one of the reasons they got marked down a little bit in one of the categories. And also the Horton Group proposed a higher fee.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pianfetti.
And Councilmember Bricks and Stock asked some of my questions, but I guess the one that came to mind is, as you were looking at the process and the metrics, was everything weighted equally, or did any of these categories carry more weight? And were those that applied, did they know that there would be categories that carried more weight? Because I don't recall reading in the document that one category would carry more weight than the others. So, for example, if experience carried more weight than expertise and resources, or, was that just something that you were looking at, or was that something known to the reviewer or to those that were submitting the proposals?
We submitted, or when we sent the RFP out, we sent the sheets showing what we would weigh the RFPs on to them, so they know what we were looking at. We also included in the RFP language things that we were looking for in terms of their experience and expertise and ability to provide ancillary services.
Thank you.
Are there other council members with Councilmember Foreman?
Can we legally not do something that's in the RFP metric and say that we were fair in our decision?
I don't know how to answer that. Sorry.
Perhaps the city attorney can address that from a procurement standpoint.
This is Fred Stavens again. I think the council has some discretion in the award of the contract. You have the evaluation of the staff in front of you. Of course, that's ordinarily given some weight by the city council, but there's nothing that compels the outcome.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? Because I was wondering if Councilmember Foreman was asking about the fact that references weren't checked. And I was just wondering if that's what she meant.
Councilmember Foreman, do you want to clarify? Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, because it was my understanding at all times in RFPs prior that, you know, how staff completes the process is a big part of what goes on. And so if calling references is a part of something and we didn't do that, I'm wondering, is this fair? Is the process fair? And were the references called in the past? How often has this happened? I just want to know, is that legal? Fred, is it legal that we don't call references for something that we put out publicly and said, we will score you based on what your references tell us?
Well, there's some discretion in references and checking references. Obviously, if we've done business with both of these companies, the notion of checking references becomes checking with ourselves. We know how they performed on our contract. Checking additional references may be of assistance, but it's discretionary with the people who are involved in the contract evaluation and the proposal evaluation process. So I think it's discretionary. I don't think there's any law that compels it. And even references are subjective in nature. So, all those things have to be weighed with some professional judgment.
So to be clear, the discretion lies with the person who's reviewing the RFP?
Well, initially, the person who's reviewing it has to make some recommendation to the city council, and based on those items that they reviewed. City manager may have a comment about that.
No, I guess what I would add to Larry's point is that often we do similar things with employment as well, that if we are also a reference, we are able to use the information we know from our experience as if we are also a reference. So we don't have to ignore the fact that if we have done business with a company and we know that we've had a good experience with that company, we factor it in as one of the references. So to Larry's point about calling additional references when we have years of experience working with companies, it's not that we didn't evaluate references, it's that we are able to consider our own experience as a client of this vendor and apply that to the reference criteria of the RFP.
If I could add one thing to help try to answer this question as well. I think Larry mentioned it, but I just want to clarify it in the context of the question. Both USI and Barham benefit groups received the highest available points in the category of experience and references. So calling references wouldn't have served to improve their score. They had already received the highest amount of credit that they could receive in that category. So again, to Dorothy's point, checking references on either of those two vendors would have meant, sort of reviewing our own experience, which was already factored into the category, and that's how they landed at the highest level of score available. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Are there other council members with technical questions? Council member Stock.
All right, I'm back for a second round. Larry, just for my own edification, so is Horton a larger group similar to USI, like a larger company?
They're larger, but they're not the size of USI. They're what you would consider a regional broker, okay. Mostly in the Midwest. Okay.
I guess then my question is, because I know a little about Barham and a little bit IPG, which are both smaller local companies. Is the system kind of skewed, I guess, on that expertise personnel? and this may be a larger question than necessarily what you have to answer, but or can answer. But is the matrix kind of skewed to basically punish small businesses, if that makes sense, because they're not, a large national or regional corporation is obviously going to have more people that are going to be on call as opposed to a smaller local business. Yet we put a lot of resources into promoting smaller local businesses. So it just seems like we're kind of working, different departments are kind of working at cross purposes, and I'm starting to get into comment mode. But I guess my question is the matrix as written and as scored detrimental to smaller agencies that are local?
I wouldn't say that it's detrimental per se, but the number of people available to work on the account is certainly something that we have to take into account. You're talking about a small brokerage that has 1, 2, 3 people, and if one of them becomes unavailable, your service can get hurt pretty badly. But if there was a local brokerage who had, say, 10 people, as opposed to a Horton or a USI, that probably wouldn't make much difference.
Is there any other council member with more technical questions? I see none. Is there anybody in the audience? And I don't see any hands raised.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, there is one hand that is raised, so I'm going to enable Brian Dunn to talk.
Hi, my name is Brian. And I just want to kind of listening to the discussion.
Dunn, Brian Dunn, please state your name, which you've done already, and your city of residence.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a resident of Champaign. Sorry, I thought I said that. But yeah, I think you guys should be checking references. I think you guys should be really checking all the boxes here. It just sounds like this is a way for larger companies, established companies, which, usually because of our history of systemic racism means white-owned companies are going to have an advantage here when you're skipping these kinds of steps. So yeah, I think that we should really go through all the steps. And I think that things like diversity or having a minority-owned company should also be weighted pretty heavily as well if we're serious about Black Lives Matter, if we're serious about being anti-racist. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Pianfetti.
I am allowing to talk the next talker, Solar Blue Seth. Please state your name and city of residence.
Timothy Rhodes of Champaign. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just because you had a good experience with the company doesn't mean everybody's having a good experience. You said that you're a big majority shareholder for that company, so you probably would want to check the references regardless. That would only be fair. I mean, just because you had a good experience doesn't mean everybody's getting one. So you guys have a great day. Good luck. You can turn me off now.
I don't see any other public comments. City council members, does anybody have any comments on this bill? I see no hands raised. No council members want to talk on this bill. Councilmember Pianfetti.
So I'm a little bit on the fence about this bill. The references to me, I understand the rationale behind it, so that doesn't bother me as much as I'm still a little bit unsure about the process and how the metrics all work themselves out. So I'm a little bit concerned about how this was actually put into place and whether or not when the RFP went out and when it was scored, if there was actually just an understanding. I think things were fairly done, but I just don't know if there was that understanding. And I would hope that as we move forward and we keep moving RFPs out, that there is To me, what I still don't know is if there was some category or some area that while it seemed like maybe something was weighted a little bit more differently, that the people that were writing the proposals needed to know that. So, for example, if one category was worth 20% and something else was 10%, that they needed to know that. However it may have fallen out, that even though the points might be there, if something was looked at a little bit differently, I think those that were writing needed to know that. That's just how it appeared to me. So I'm just unsure of the whole process.
Other council members with comments? Councilmember Stock.
I guess, and City Manager, can you help me with this, or someone? What exactly is our local preference ordinance that we passed, the specifics? Does it simply say that they have to have a presence, or is there any extra points, for lack of a better word, if they are actually owned and operated in Champaign versus?
So I do not have the ordinance in front of me. It's possible maybe Fred can pull it up, the language, but we don't get into those details. So local is local office, local address. We don't get into how local.
Gotcha. That was my question.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess my only concern is I feel a little bit like the system is sort of skewed for a smaller local, which frankly is probably going to be a local company. But a smaller company is just simply not going with our matrix. I don't see how a smaller local business is going to be able to compete with the USI simply because of staffing. And I feel like they're going to get hit every single time, which is a little problematic as we try to encourage people to buy local and encourage ourselves to use local vendors and all those sorts of things. And I get that USI may have an office in town that has, X number of employees or whatever, and we're not going to get into what's really local. But in reality, though, the smaller business person is just simply not going to be able to compete. And I think that that's sort of unfortunate the way this system seems. It'd be one thing if it was a blowout, but when it's pretty close like this, to me, that kind of matters.
Council Member Bricks.
I agree with Councilmember Stock. I think that that's a big concern. And I think that's kind of the point of checking the references. I get that you have a relationship with them and you know what works and what doesn't. But if you're concerned about whether or not having 3 people on staff or under 10 people on staff and knowing whether or not they've been effective, then maybe it's worthwhile checking references just to see if, how they work, was that an issue? Is that something we should be concerned about? And so I do think that element of it is important. So I definitely don't want smaller businesses to be discounted because it's an impossibility to meet a certain standard on the RFP.
Are there other council members with comments? Council Member Foreman.
For me, it's really the principle of the point. And I say that because I'm the council member that gets calls from small Black businesses who bid out our cleaning RFPs. And when I try to talk to staff about the RFP, I'm told how important the metrics are. But then the staff is sitting in front of me right now telling me, oh, well, it's at discretion. Well, if it's at discretion and we're saying all of our RFPs are at discretion, then who's in those positions to make that discretion starts to be a big deal. And I think that's a different conversation because, some of our employees have been here for a long time. They have relationships with people. They develop things, and anything we do with the city should just be the best thing and the right thing to do. And this feels a little like we are kind of stepping on the small business guy who has an office that we drive by, twice a week when I'm on my way to Girl Scouts. And I'm trying to, I guess that's not really sitting with me. And I'm kind of wanting to understand if the metrics were the way they were and they weren't so close. I could say, man, this isn't, no big deal. This doesn't sit well with me. So I know I'm just one person, but y'all should just go ahead and cut this and start this one over because this don't look good at all.
Are there other council members with comments? I'd like to comment. I too am concerned about this council bill three different things come to mind. I think it's unforgivable that we didn't check references. Checking references is, if you don't do it, you leave yourself wide open to find out, perhaps I would have learned something negative about the one that I'm going to recommend. Maybe they've had a problem with another person. I think when we hire from within on city staff, somebody seeking a promotion within the city, in the personnel department, I hope they check their references, even though we've known the person for a number of years. That's how you discover that there might be a problem out there. So the fact that we had favorable opinions of all the respondents doesn't solve the problem that perhaps checking the reference might have shaken one of those favorable opinions by discovering something unpleasant about one of the applicants. So the fact that we have that aspect in there, we ask people to give us references and then we don't check them, makes me uncomfortable voting yes on a council bill like this tonight. Secondly, I am a lawyer, but I'm not a contract lawyer. I do criminal defense work. I can be pretty sloppy sometimes, but my gosh, the contract was 5 pages long. And I looked at it, and the first thing that leapt out at me was it's $40,000 plus commissions. And so I'm not reassured to find out that, well, they're probably not going to charge us those commissions, because it didn't take me very long to come across that paragraph. And while I don't want to criticize our city staff for not noticing that paragraph, I'm certainly critical of USI for not noticing that paragraph, presenting us with a contract with a signature on it that provides for a rate of compensation that's different from what we all think it is. So I think that's an unforgivable piece of sloppiness that makes me suspect. I didn't do the matrix. I didn't do the background work. But if this is how they prepared the contract with us, I don't know what other health insurance premium savings they may be overlooking because they don't look carefully at a 5-page document. Lastly, I'll talk about the concept of confirmation bias. When you've reached a conclusion already, and then you reach out for information that affirms your conclusion, I think a psychologist would call that confirmation bias. And there may be some of that going on here too. So for all those reasons, I'll be a no on this council bill tonight. Are there any other council members with comments on this bill? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Beck,
No.
Bricks,
No.
Foreman,
No.
Gladney,
No.
Kyles,
No.
Pianfetti,
No.
Stock,
No.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
And I'm a no, and the council bill is defeated 8-0. Will the clerk please call the next council bill?
Council Bill number 2020-95, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Champaign to rezone the property at 501 North 5th Street, 504 North 4th Street, and 406 East Washington Street from the SF1 Single Family Zoning District to the CI Commercial Industrial Zoning District.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any council members with technical questions about Council Bill 95? Council Member Foreman.
I just have questions for the staff. When we did neighborhood input, did we also talk to like Habitat for Humanity to find out if they would be interested, or any type of neighborhood or community things like that?
I think I'll defer to Carrie Wyman, because that really ties back to the RFP process rather than the rezoning.
Thanks, Bruce, and I was on mute, which I do at least once in every Zoom meeting.
Yes, actually, Habitat for Humanity was one of the partners that we contacted for the full RFP process. They did actually submit proposals for 2 of the lots. There were, I think, a little over 10 lots on the original list that went out in the entire RFP process. So they did purchase 2 of the lots. They did not have a request for these lots, though.
Okay. And then, can you do me a favor, Bruce, and kind of list what are the uses that the industrial commercial could be for this particular, if the zoning change was made?
I'm sorry, you broke up just a little bit there. What was the question again?
If the zoning change is made to commercial industrial, what are those? Can you read those suspect or those available uses?
The list of permitted uses?
Yeah.
Let me.
Is it too long? I just want.
Well, let me just pull it up here. So it includes animal clinic, major auto repair, minor auto repair, broadcast studio, car wash, clinic, lodge, club, park, outdoor commercial recreation, community center, contractor shop, freestanding parking lot, freestanding parking structure, government facility, greenhouse nursery, intermodal transportation facility, religious institution, indoor commercial recreation, utility station, rail yard freight terminal, personal services, vocational school, theater, truck terminal, office, vehicle sales, warehouse, wholesale, emergency center, event center, financial institution, kennel, microbrewery, microdistillery, research testing facility, restaurant, carry-out restaurant, transitional housing, and self-storage warehouse.
Last question. How bad, if this industrial use is, if we do change it to commercial industrial, what is, can you explain kind of why staff in the report is saying that they are opposed to the change?
So staff's opposition comes from a number of different perspectives, but it's centered around the review of the LaSalle criteria based on Illinois state law. But this area is shown in the comprehensive plan as being entirely residential. It is currently zoned entirely residential. There's really no non-residential zoning really anywhere close to this. The potential list of uses, even though the applicant has indicated, something they're interested in doing, anything on that list of uses has to be considered as a potential once we rezone it, because there's no limitations on being able to introduce any of those land uses, either in the immediate future or the long-term future. I would also note that the only public input other than the applicant that we got was all in opposition.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Foreman? Technical question, Greg Stock.
Carrie, this may be more of a question for you, I'm not sure. But when we granted the RFP to the petitioner on this, it was with the end, was he upfront about this is the kind of project that he wanted to do? And we gave it to him anyway, even though it wasn't zoned for that?
Correct. The way the RFP was issued, because he had already expressed that he would be interested, but we knew that it wasn't zoned correctly. We give him the opportunity to try the zoning process because we can't determine that. That's something that goes through the Planning and Development Department, requires the Plan Commission review, and then ultimately City Council. So it's written that if they don't get the correct zoning, then the lot will revert back to the city.
And to be clear, planning staff met with the applicant before that happened and made it very clear to him that we saw no way that we could support this rezoning.
Bruce, in your experience, do you see any other use for these lots anytime in the future? Being in an SF1 district, is there any chance that anyone would really build a single family house along the railroad tracks?
I have a hard time answering that. There's single family houses along railroad tracks throughout our entire community. So it's certainly not precluded. I think staff recognizes the challenges, but we think what's proposed is too extreme. And, the applicant has indicated, if this doesn't get approved, he wants us to tell him what he should do with the property. That's not our job per se, to tell somebody what to do with property they've acquired. It's zoned single family. Might there be another proposal that staff would support? It's possible, but without knowledge of what that might be, it's not. I'm not able to really respond. What's the use beyond single family that might be allowed here?
Councilmember Beck.
So if we did deny this tonight, the applicant, of course, would have an opportunity to come back with a new application if he wanted to come back and request a zoning change to mixed use or a lesser commercial. This one's a pretty commercial industrial. If he came back with a commercial business kind of proposal for a zoning change or something like that, that's a possibility still.
In any normal application, if it's denied, they're precluded from coming back with the exact same proposal for a period of time, but they could come back with a different proposal. I'm not totally familiar with the RFP process and whether it would allow that or whether it automatically reverts and we start over with a new RFP. And Carrie, maybe you can answer that.
Our thought was if it was denied, it would come back and go back to our lot disposition process. And so at that point, he could submit another proposal, but he would start back over. And it's worth noting that there was competition on these particular parcels.
Councilmember Stock.
Carrie, can you talk more about that? Was there competition for these parcels for someone wanting to build single family? And if so, why would we not have given that to someone who is going to meet the existing zoning instead of playing a what if?
They were not wanting to build single family. So they also were they were outside the zoning. It was to build a garage structure because they're actually contiguous to the lot to the north. But that also doesn't meet zoning, but it was, and I think some of this might have been noted in the report. It's a little less, that would be maybe a special use. I'm getting in Bruce's area here a little bit, but it was not industrial. It wasn't a commercial. It would be something that would be tied to their residential property. But because there's an alleyway that divides the two parcels, that's why it wasn't considered to be in compliance.
Right. I think that's a key factor here. If the lot had actually been contiguous, they could have created a zoning lot and built a garage that was an accessory structure to their single family home to the north. Because the alley separated it, we would have had to go through some kind of zoning approval process. In that case, because it's much closer to a residential use, a special use permit probably would have been an appropriate solution.
Councilmember Beck.
Oh, sorry, I had another one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let's go with Greg still.
Okay. Carrie, how did we wind up with these lots in the first place?
I don't remember. I'd have to look in the, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head on these two particular lots, but we can get that information. Many of the lots come to us through a code process, but sometimes they're actually donated to us as well. More than likely, these were code related at some point in the past.
Councilmember Beck.
This is really just a point of information for me. Is this alleyway that runs between 4th and 5th Street, is it a city maintained alleyway?
It is city right of way. It is not an improved alley at this point in time. I think there may be some gravel there, but it is our right of way.
Okay.
that conclude your technical questions, Councilmember Beck. Councilmember Briggs.
So how long does the agreement go with the reverter clause?
I'll have to look that up. I apologize. I don't have that right in front of me. And I'd point out that our goal here is not to, we don't want these lots back. So if there's within a reasonable time frame, a second opportunity, but eventually it would have to go back to the process. City manager maybe wants to chime in.
I just wanted to point out, so part of because the lot disposition was done through an RFP process, the selection is based on the proposal put forward. So to Councilmember Beck's earlier question, if the zoning is not approved tonight, it wouldn't be that then the proposer could change what they're doing on the lot and do something different, because then that wouldn't be a fair process to the other people who submitted a proposal. So our recommendation would be, if the zoning fails tonight, that we essentially nullify that agreement. Title to those properties stay with the city, and we'd issue a new RFP. That would not preclude the current person who is proposing something that's on the agenda tonight from submitting a new RFP for a different use on those properties. But out of fairness to the process and to the other proposer, the contract isn't set up to say, because you got the best proposal, you can keep changing what you wanted to do. If zoning fails tonight, we would execute the reverter clause, and our recommendation would be to issue a fresh RFP at some date in the future.
So that kind of piggybacks then on my next question. So when you're saying that it's denied and that person could come back, it's not as if these properties are available just year round. They usually happen one time a year, I think. So this person would have to wait, or anybody who wanted to put a proposal in on this, they would have to wait an entire year to do that. Or because of the circumstances, they would be able, it would just be opened up sooner rather than later on this particular parcel, or how would that work?
One thing we've learned through this process is that it's still too complex, and we're not moving the lots off of our maintenance list fast enough. So we're actually proposing, we'll be coming to you in study session in late October to actually look at the entire lot disposition process, because our goal is to actually streamline and get these properties as they come into the city's rolls, to get them back out, get them off of our lot maintenance list so that we reduce cost, and to get them back into generating on the property tax rolls. So I will tell you, one of our goals in discussion with the city manager is to do this in a more streamlined fashion, so we're not waiting an entire year in the process. And so that's our goal, and we'll be discussing that with you. Until we have that conversation, though, you're correct, there would be a delay before we'd have a new RFP.
Okay, and do we know why they picked, I mean, granted, you wrote a little bit about what the project is, but do you know why they picked commercial, industrial versus just commercial, if it's for a vocational type place?
Well, I think that's the zoning that best fits the use of the property they were proposing. I wouldn't call it vocational so much as, a series of small warehouse spaces that, they described as potentially an incubator, but any business that was in that list that I read could go in one of those spaces.
Okay, thanks.
Other technical questions? Councilmember Kyles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just so that I'm hearing correctly, if we were to table or to vote, so just so I can hear it correctly, we need to this particular developer needs to basically fall within the guidelines of the proposal. So the developer could not go back either way and change to commercial. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
So I believe so. I mean, we have not sold this lot to this developer. What we did is we executed a sales contract that is contingent upon them securing city council approval of the zoning change for the use that they proposed. So if city council does not approve the zoning change, that agreement becomes null. It's not like we sold it and they own it outright. And if you don't approve the zoning, then they can, figure out what to do with their property and come forward with different zoning. What they have is an agreement based on a proposal, based on a proposed use. And that was through a competitive process. There was another proposer that was denied. And so unless we change the process for sale of the properties, what I would recommend is we stick to the terms of that agreement, which was if you do not authorize the zoning change for the use they proposed during the RFP, that then the reverter clause goes into effect. The city retains ownership of that property, and then we go through a disposition process at a future date and time. That does not preclude this developer from submitting a future proposal if we do a different disposition process. But I don't think it is fair to other people who proposed for us to now let the developer change what they were doing, because that would be kind of counter to the RFP process, I think.
Other technical questions? I see none. I have a couple. Do the railroad tracks have a zoning classification assigned to them?
Well, that's a good question. I think they generally are not zoned, but I would have to double check that.
Okay. So should the Norfolk Southern abandon those tracks and sell them on the marketplace, sell that land on the marketplace, there'd just be a void in our zoning map of unzoned land? Or
yeah, so they are looking at our zoning map online. They are shown with no zoning category. I think if that right of way was vacated, then and depending on who it went to, the zoning ordinance would have the adjoining zoning, expand into that area.
okay. And I have a question on the LaSalle criteria. The LaSalle criteria was laid out in an appellate decision that stemmed from a lawsuit. Who would have the right to sue in a situation like this if we failed to grant the zoning change? Could the aggrieved party sue the city? Or if we granted the zoning change, could a neighbor that felt that their interests were harmed, could they sue the city? Who could be the plaintiffs in a suit similar to the LaSalle lawsuit?
Sounds like a question for the city attorney. Yes, thank you.
This is Fred. Well, fortunately, both people can sue. They can both go out and retain lawyers and sue. One for both sort of similar, that the city has done something beyond its powers. One person might sue because of a spot zoning issue, which is a due process issue. Same thing with the other person who could sue because we haven't rezoned something in spite of an obvious compliance with the rezoning criteria.
So
I don't think either one of the lawsuits. I don't think any of the lawsuits are winner lawsuits. But could they sue? Sure, they have an arguable basis.
That's what I was asking. I didn't think that that it's likely to happen either direction, but anybody who was aggrieved by a decision we made tonight would have standing to sue over it. If they said you should have changed it, but you didn't, or you shouldn't have changed it, anybody who's aggrieved by that would have the power, the standing to bring a lawsuit.
Yeah, aggrieved is a more narrow term in zoning, though. Aggrieved means you have some direct financial interest that was impacted.
harm.
So if I would live a block away and I was not satisfied with it, they would probably not have standing.
Okay. This is a question maybe Carrie or Bruce could answer, but looking back 30 years or so, when was the last time, if you can point to an example of a private party building a single family home within a mile of this location or within a half a mile of this location? Have any private parties, not Habitat for Humanity, not the city of Champaign, just erected a brand new single family home in this area?
Yes, actually, not that far away.
Okay. So,
And that was a private party transaction.
and somebody just built a new home.
Yes.
Okay. That answers my technical questions. Are there any other technical questions? I see none. Any members of the public that wish to speak to Council Bill 95?
Yes, there are currently 2 hands raised, and I will enable the speaking for the first speaker, Andrea Newman. Please state your name and city of residence.
Hello, can you hear me pretty good?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Andrew Newman and I live in Champaign, Illinois. My husband and I have lived directly across the street from this particular property in question at 601 North 4th Street for approximately 27 years. And we are the only people who have resided in this home. We moved into it brand spanking new. We've been in it ever since. I'm very concerned about how our neighborhood will change if this zoning is changed for that piece of property. Currently, it's empty, and while I will admit it's not the most appealing view, it's safe. No one hangs out there. It's not used as dumping grounds in some areas that I've seen empty lots to the point that it almost looks like a garbage dump. It's not used like that. It's just green space, with the exception of, I believe they built some type of small power substation there. I'm not real sure what the technical thing that is, but I feel safe sitting out on the front of my home. And other than the regular car traffic on 4th Street here, we don't get any truck traffic, and I like to keep it that way. In fact, the MTD does not even come down 4th Street unless there's some event going on in Champaign and it's diverted for special events. The owner mentioned in the zoning planning meeting, which I also attended, that what he plans to build there is going to bring jobs to the neighborhood, but that is a pretty big assumption because first of all, who knows if those businesses will even hire the residents, and mainly because the majority of the residents that are near this place are very established, like myself, been at their jobs, if they're still working, for a number of years, couple of decades, in fact, or they're retired. So clearly it's not going to be a job that anyone's going to rush out and apply to, because we do have quite a few retirees in the area. And then what about our property values? Myself and my neighbors go to great lengths to take care of our properties. And I don't know if you got the same report the zoning planning commission had or board has, but there's pictures in it. In fact, both myself and one of my neighbors' homes are in those pictures. So you can see that for yourself. So depending on the business, we're afraid we could have some loitering, trash, perhaps an uptick in crime. We know that we just feel that changing the zoning to a commercial industry, is not going to be advantageous to anyone but the owner, which someone made a point that I believe the neighborhood director said that he doesn't actually own it, which is interesting because he led us to believe that he owned it through the zoning meeting. So I kind of have to change my notes here a little bit. But anyway, as I was saying was that the only person that's going to have advantages to the zone being changed is himself. But we wondered if they couldn't possibly build a duplex or fourplex like directly across the street on 5th Street on the opposite side of this property, I believe it caters to seniors in those particular fourplexes. And because what we understand is that the ground is, there's no reports that say that the ground is contaminated. So building them is feasible, because at one point in time, he did feel that that might have been a problem. And then one of the last things I want to say is that another thing that's, okay, if you do allow the zoning change, what if it's sold to someone else? Anything on that list can be built, and especially if it's someone who has no connection to our city or even lives out of state. They don't have to live with that decision. You don't have to live with that decision. The person who currently is trying to make the change in the zoning, he doesn't have to live with the decision, but I do. And my other neighbors do as well. Overall, I can't see any advantages to the residents in changing the zoning. And in fact, this change would only be profitable for one person. And I just truly hope that the council really looks at this before they make this decision that could change our neighborhood, and hopefully not sacrifice the needs of many just to satisfy the wants of one. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to be opening up the microphone for the next speaker, Yolanda Towns.
Please state your name and your city of residence.
Hello, my name is John Towns. I'm Yolanda's husband. I live at 401 East Columbia Avenue. I'm just north of that lot that we're talking about right now. First of all, I hope everybody's doing well this evening. But just to let you guys know something real quick, we were the other people that were in the running for that property behind us. And just to let you know, we had a meeting with the city for at least 30 minutes plus about that property behind us. And we thought, as we met with the city, that the property was ours. We told them what we was going to build. They told us to get a blueprint of what we were going to build. We was going to build a 2-car garage, and they told us we had to get we had to put plumbing in there, plus a couple other things to make it kind of like residential, which we were. We paid to get a blueprint with the landscaping, fence, everything. Our property is on the corner of 4th and Columbia, and my wife, she landscapes. And so she prides herself on keeping everything up to par. We don't mind something back there, but we don't want anything back there that just to make our property value go down. We're trying to make this neighborhood prosper just like they're doing on Market Street. And if you notice, everybody on 4th Street, the west side, all the houses and the lawn everything is taken care of. What the city told us to my face was that this would not be commercial. This would be residential. They want somebody in this neighborhood to take over that lot. That's what they told me to my face. That's what they told me when I came down to the city building and we had a 30-minute plus meeting with 4 or 5 people there. And then all of a sudden, I'm at work. My wife gets a call saying that we got outbidded or we no longer have the property no more, after I didn't spend money on somebody drawing up plans as far as to show the city what I was going to do. The paperwork the city told me to do. And before I left the city building, I asked the people that were there. I said, when I go through all this, are you telling me that this property is going to be purchased? Am I good purchasing this property? And not one person says, well, no. They just says, get everything we got to do, and we're going to go to the next step. I spent money on an architect, and then next day or 2 days later, my wife calls me while I'm at work, and I work for the state. She's telling me that, John, we don't have it. I said, what do you mean? I just got a call saying we just got bamboozled. So at that time I was very upset, and I did call the city and I let them know how much I was upset. And I'm a lot better now than what I was, but in a nutshell, I'm agreeing with Andrea that we don't want this. We want something back there that fit what we're trying to do here. The North End has got a lot better since when I first moved here, from the projects, how they're fixing up Market Street, how they've done Bradley from across the street, and it's staying like that. Turning this into commercial, I don't want that to be because I'm right behind. I mean, that's right behind my house. I don't want no loitering. I don't want nobody. I think I'm 55 years old, and you can ask Andrea, the one you just got to spoke to. I think I'm the wildest one here, and I'm not that wild. It's not that, I drive motorcycles. I get up early, go to work, but we want to keep it to that point to where it's not to where I gotta call 911, every single night. But yeah, we were the one that was in the running for that lot, which I thought we had it, but it didn't go there. That's in a nutshell, and I'm done talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to unmute the next speaker, Brian Carter. Please remember to state your name and city of residence.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Carter. I live at 405 East Columbia. I live directly behind, the lot is directly behind my house. My first statement is I just oppose anything commercial back there. I've lived there for 54 years. I watched the previous gentleman, the previous guy that wanted to do something commercial, and he stated that the lot is a lot of loitering, a lot of dumping. That's not true. Like I said, I've lived there for 54 years, and I've not seen that whatsoever. There's no loitering, there's no dumping. I just oppose that because I can remember a time when there was a company there. There was a trucking company behind there. And I can remember all the noise that trucking company made all times of the night and morning. It woke everyone up. It's just continuous trucks moving and going. And the proposal, really, of all the things listed, it could almost be anything commercial. So I just oppose that. And like my neighbor John Townsend had said also, the neighborhood is improving. I would love to see some type of multifamily home or duplex on the 5th Street side. I don't think there's room on the 4th Street side, but I just don't think anything commercial in that neighborhood there's nothing else commercial in that neighborhood, in our neighborhood. I just don't think there's nothing that could enhance that. I think homes, single family homes or something like that would enhance that area behind my house. I hope the commission takes this into consideration, and thank you for your time.
Deputy Mayor, I'm going to enable to talk the next speaker, Solar Bluth Seth. Please state your name and city of residence.
Yes, ma'am. Timothy Rhodes, Champaign. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
As a businessman, I could think of 5 different businesses I can open up right where you said. And this should bring to the light the healthy competition. You said there was healthy competition for this property. So there might be other properties that we need to start thinking about rezoning so that we can bring in more jobs. Because all I heard during the whole thing was jobs. You can put this type of job, you can have that type of job, you can have that type of job. And I think that's great for a neighborhood to build I don't know how many jobs you could get out of there, but it's a good food for thought, right? Let's build a better community. I do respect the people who live in that community. So if I did open a bar or salon or restaurant, I'd promise to keep it down. You guys have a great day.
Deputy Mayor, I do not see, there is one more hand raised. I am going to enable to talk the next speaker, Phil Facelia. Please state your name and city of residence.
Phil Facella, 505 West Green Street, Champaign. So I am one of the petitioners. I currently own the east 3 lots. Those were not a part of this city RFP. I purchased those from Mr. Pelmore's estate. That was the gentleman with the trucking company. And then I also am in title on the west 3 lots. We have a deed. We are the owners. We have insurance on the property. We pay taxes on the property. There is a reverter clause in the deed that if we do not succeed in getting this project approved somehow in 6 months, the city can then take back the property and put it back through the RFP process. Obviously, as Tom mentioned, we have 6 months. There's no reason we couldn't go to court or do something else, go back in a different way to try to get things approved a different way, because we do have that 6 months under the reversionary clause. But I do understand very much the concern of the neighbors. Applying for this zoning change was not our first choice. I was hoping to be able to do something with a special use permit. There really was no way to do that with, staff's cooperation. So this was kind of the direction I figured I would start with. But what I'm asking for today basically is to turn a property which has been vacant on my side for 2 decades, on the side that we purchased from the city for 4 decades, into something that brings some value to the community. As you may know, I do have to live with the consequences tonight because I own both a number of commercial buildings and roughly half a dozen homes in the immediate neighborhood. Question have bothered me for years, and I've wanted to do something with them. I know the neighbors have said that dumping isn't a problem, but every week we pull 2 bags of garbage up to an entire pickup truck load of garbage off of the properties. I feel like my crew stays on it, probably a little bit more than some other property owners in town, but it is a substantial burden. We also, just in talking with the Champaign police, we had a shooting on July 15th on the east side of the property, the part that I didn't get from the city. 2 firearms were recovered. Nobody was apprehended. And then on August the 20th, a young lady was shot by somebody from our property on the west side. She was standing in 4th Street, and somebody from my property shot and killed her. So there is, I think, somewhat of an issue with people using the vacant lot at times for purposes that are less than ideal. We probably get a half a dozen bottles of liquor off the property every time we mow, so there's somebody's drinking there. And I didn't come to this proposal just from a void. I did this over the course of several years, trying to talk with people in the Fifth and Hill Neighborhood Association and other people who live in the area about things that would be useful here, things that might be appreciated. I have been told, like a gentleman previously mentioned, he doesn't want lottery here. Retail obviously is unacceptable. And I understand that would be problems. I haven't done a phase 1 or a phase 2. I mean, given that Mr. Pelmore was essentially running a junkyard, a phase 2 would definitely be necessary. I've already invested thousands of dollars in architecture and legal fees, putting $20,000 or $30,000 into soil boring and testing, and then to have a potential environmental.
Mr. Fasella.
Yes.
1 more minute.
Oh, all right. But basically what I'm proposing to do is build a wooden fenced, screened and gated area, and to put basically office warehouse units of about 1,000 to 2,000 square feet inside where small businesses could locate. This could be anything from a commissary for a food truck, maybe a contractor warehouse for somebody who serves campus, with repair trucks, things like that. The reason I was somewhat inspired to do this was that we have several storefronts on North 1st Street. I feel like they've done a lot of good as far as enabling entrepreneurship in the community, but they don't serve people that aren't doing strictly retail uses very well.
Wrap it up, Mr. Fasella.
The only other thing I would say is that this property was listed for sale with a realtor for single family use for a total of roughly 14 years. at the end asking $15,000 a lot or best offer, and there were no purchasers. So I could go into it more, but I don't believe that single family use could work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fasella. We're not going to call on the same people for additional opportunities to speak tonight, and so I don't see any other hands that haven't already spoken. And so that's public comment. Do city council members have comment? Council member Foreman.
So my main concern, particularly at this property, is that it's been vacant for quite a long time. I don't live in this area, but I've grown up here, and so the area it's been vacant for quite a while. And some type of development in this area, I believe, would be good and would bring value. My concern, though, is I believe that the people we heard from tonight are the same people at the Plan Commission, and there's an entire neighborhood around this area, and I'm not sure that we have enough public input to really go either way. I mean, at least for me, I want to do something in this area that's good, and I don't want to do anything drastic, but I don't feel I've had enough public input to understand how this really affects that neighborhood. And I would like to know, because Mr. Promore's company was there for quite a long time, and some of the residents are still there who were there, and I would like to know more about the notes in the comment that says that they felt like it's taking it backwards. That's not well documented or presented from multiple neighbors. And so I would like more information about that. So I would like to make a motion that we set this particular council bill for a future study session. And the next time the city manager has available to fit it on the agenda. So if I could get a second on that, I think a full study session would give everybody a better chance to really make the best option or best choice.
Is that a motion to table this council bill?
Motion to move it to a full study session based on the city manager being able to put it on the agenda, the next available agenda for a study session.
I'll second.
City attorney. Can we get Fred Stavens available?
They must be talking to each other because neither one of them have.
Hello?
Fred,
can you hear me now?
Yeah, Fred, my question to you is, Councilmember Foreman wants to move this council bill to a study session. I inquired whether she meant that to be a motion to table this. We're in the middle of council comments. What clarification can you make procedurally?
Yeah, there's a motion to refer a matter to a study session. I mean, there's a valid council procedure that says refer it to the study session. You could refer it back to the Plan Commission. You could refer it to a study session. Okay. You could refer it back to staff. There's several ways to do that.
That clarifies it. Councilmember Foreman has moved to refer it to a study session, and there's been a second. Is there discussion on Councilmember Foreman's motion? Councilmember Stock.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, quick point of order. This might be for the city attorney. Is it possible to ask a technical question of staff regarding zoning process before we move forward on a vote?
Not in the middle of the vote.
Okay. Motion to table is usually, well, it's not a motion to table, but it's usually non-debatable.
Okay. So there's no technical questions part of this.
The motion itself is debatable. The motion to refer is debatable. The motion to postpone is not, okay. Except as the time.
It's the motion to refer, so it is debatable.
It's debatable, but it's debatable with respect to the motion itself.
Do any council members have any debate or comment on the motion to table, on the motion to refer to a study session? Councilmember Beck.
My only concern is how this might actually affect the timeline of the 6 months that would be in the agreement that we have with the purchaser of the property, and whether or not that extends the 6 months or whether it is within the 6 months. I guess I don't know how that affects that. I know that maybe sounds like a technical question, but I don't know what the effect on that is.
Councilmember Pianfetti.
And I guess I am also wondering, is the outcome just wanting more community input? And is that best served through a complete study session? Or are there other ways that could be achieved? Because I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it the full-blown study session, or are there particular points of wanting more community input that might be achieved more quickly that would address Councilmember Beck's concerns as well?
Councilmember Stock first, and then Beck.
Okay, since I couldn't ask my technical question, I'll just state it as a statement. If this comes back to us, it would be nice if it's possible for staff to examine if there's any other ways to get this project done without a total rezoning, which I totally understand how that would make neighbors uncomfortable about what could be there. So I don't know if there's another way to do that, or if rezoning is literally the only way to make the project work as presented.
Councilmember Beck, did you have comment?
Yes, I'm wondering the same as Councilmember Pianfetti. So maybe a study session is one possibility for us to do. Maybe a second possibility for us would be to refer it back to staff to collect more neighborhood input. And then that could come back to us on the table at a further date that we table it to. And maybe that takes less, maybe that there would be more expedient. I don't know, rather than have a study session to decide how we would collect more information from the community and then collect more information from the community and then have it come back.
Let me call upon the city, Councilmember Bricks, if you could wait just a minute. Let me ask the city manager to provide us with the information that if Councilmember Foreman's motion to refer this to a study session were to be successful, when would you be able to schedule such a study session?
So I have to confirm the availability of staff, but we should be able to do late September, beginning of October at the latest. We do have study sessions planned for the next 2 meeting weeks on some issues that are, I think, time critical, one being the budget and the second being a review of all the emergency orders, which we'd like to complete in September before council reconsiders that emergency ordinance again at the beginning of October. But I would think that we could probably do the 22nd of September or, like I said, early October. With regard to the specific question about the timeline, and Carrie Wyman can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the timing that we have with the property owner is through December. So they have until December, and I would think that we would be able to have the study session discussion and bring this back to a regular agenda for council consideration in time before that 6-month clock expires in December. Is that correct, Carrie?
She indicated with a thumbs up.
Okay.
Back to council comments on the motion to refer to a study session. Councilmember Bricks.
I appreciate trying to get it on the agenda sooner rather than later, because I don't want this to turn into a Clark Park 2 where everything just drags and drags and drags. And I also think I do agree. I think it's not only for neighborhood feedback, but also potential options for what can happen with zoning or any other way other than doing this commercial industrial. Thank you.
Are the Councilmember Foreman?
And to be clear to comment, really it's clarity, being able to get clarity on because we have a lot of questions that we're being told like, oh, I don't know. And, I just want to get clarity. If we do this, how is this done? And is there, any other way to get that done? Because specifically, this area deserves development. And if Habitat doesn't want a property and Habitat take anything, that just gives me pause to kind of figure out, what can we do here? And I think there's not one person on this meeting who would vote for anything that involves a convenience store, loitering, anything like that. So if we're going to give something consideration, just putting it on the agenda and us voting on it right now and having an open meeting without actual feedback from the public, I think is doing a disservice to that neighborhood, because more than just those property owners live there. You have a whole other neighborhood around that is very active, by the way. So that we can definitely get feedback, whether it goes back to staff or not. I know we can get feedback from those neighbors.
Are there additional council comments on the motion to refer to study session? Councilmember Kyles.
I would support this motion, and I seconded it. If it were just about the commercial industrial, the fact that it could be a retail, the fact that it could be, there's no secret that I love economic development, but if this were to be turn into a situation where the seller would be in a position where he sold it to the developer would sold it to a railroad company, that's the biggest thing of concern. And the one thing that I would definitely not like. So being able to refer it back to talk about it, get more neighborhood input, see what could be done, is definitely something that I would be for.
Are there any additional council comments on the motion to refer to a study session? Will the clerk please call the roll on Councilmember Foreman's motion to refer this to a study session?
Councilmember Beck,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
And I'm a yes, and the motion to refer to a study session passes 8-0. Will the clerk please call the next council bill?
Council Bill number 2020-96, an ordinance approving emergency orders and extending Council Bill 2020-22 relating to the COVID-19 emergency.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there, this council bill would approve a continuation of Council Bill 2020-022, an ordinance related to emergency created by the impact of COVID-19 virus until the City Council's first meeting in October 2020, unless it is amended or repealed by the City Council before that date. The council bill would also approve the continuance of 15 emergency orders, of which 4 have been issued by the city manager, which concern human resources policy or financial adjustments. Are there any technical questions? Councilmember Stock.
City Manager, could you give us a quick little teaser, sneak preview? We have a study session coming up on this topic, correct?
Yes. So obviously, we've been doing a lot very quickly as we have been responding to this emergency. The mayor has been signing emergency orders, and then monthly, usually first meeting of the month, we ask you guys to ratify. It is clear that the pandemic is going to be with us for a while. And that a number of these orders are going to be continuing for some period of time. So from my perspective, the kind of we need to do an order urgently starts to turn into when do we discuss it as a longer term policy if it's going to be in place for a long time. So I had discussed this with the mayor before she left, so she is also aware that I believe that we should have a study session, even if council just reviews the current orders, the ones that are in place, and you guys determine that no changes are necessary going forward, then we can continue moving forward with the orders as they are written. But I believe that it is important for the city council as a whole to discuss these as policy and decide, do any of them need to be changed? Do any of them rise to the level that maybe we should make code changes or adopt different policies that will be longstanding rather than continuing to handle all of these issues kind of just under mayoral emergency orders? So that's kind of the intent of the September 15th study session.
Thank you.
Are there other technical questions? Councilmember Briggs.
So are we only looking at the orders, or are we also looking at the process overall of the emergency declaration?
So we're just looking at the orders right now. I think while we are in the middle of the pandemic, that's what our focus is to make sure that the actions taken specific to the pandemic reflect the will of council and don't need to be modified. It is not our intent to make September 15th looking at the whole section of the code related to the emergency ordinance. We can do that, but I would suggest that staff would need more time to do that because we have really been focused on just keeping up with the emergency orders and the demands of all the service changes we've been doing in response to COVID specifically.
Okay.
Are there other council members with technical questions? Are there any audience members who want to speak to this proposed ordinance? I see no hands. Council comments. I see no hands. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Beck,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
I'm a yes, and the council bill passes 8-0. That concludes the legislation on tonight's agenda. Now is the time that citizens are able to address the city council relative to any city-related matter. If you wish to address the council, please step to the microphone, give your name and city of residence for the record, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I'm going to enable the first speaker, Brian Dunn. Please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Brian Dunn. I live in Champaign. I wanted to publicly recognize the work of the Champaign County Anti-Racist Coalition. Their organizing, community building, and direct action has been incredible to watch and take part in over this summer, especially considering the intimidation, threats, and assaults they endured, knowing that neither the police nor the city would protect them. Because of our community's past and present segregation and subjugation of Black people, anti-racism needs to be at the core of all public policy, whether that be policing, housing, healthcare, or any other system. We spent generations in our community being actively racist. The only way to counteract that from top to bottom is to be actively anti-racist in our policy, procedure, policymaking, all that. Local academic Shay Akil McLean, who is a PhD in ecology, evolution, and conservation biology and currently focuses on race biology and genetics, said, "Racism is not a monster nor an invisible, intangible force. Racism is the result of actions coordinated by governing bodies that control power and resources. Racism is in the laws, it's in the procedures, it's in the protocols, it's in the contracts. Human beings are doing this." End of the quote. So when we see these organizations from CC ARC to Pains of Peace to Illini football organizing marches to the police station, what they're protesting isn't some hypothetical or figurative boogeyman. They're protesting the laws and policies that you all control and influence and have the power to change. And that's just something that I'd like to point out. Thank you.
I am now enabling the next speaker, Allan Axelrod. Please state your name and city of residence.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So my name is Allan Axelrod. My city of residence is in Urbana. And I wanted to bring a couple of updates on a topic that I've been speaking to you about on and off for several weeks. This is about pandemic safety risks that the state is allowing to get way worse. And it is 100% preventable at no cost to our government. The Illinois Commerce Commission moratorium on utility suspensions is expiring at the end of today. They are allowing utility shutoffs tomorrow. In Urbana, they are going to start utility shutoffs on September 4th. Illinois American Water has sent in an email that they are also going to be shutting off services in September. People will not be able to stay safely housed. They will not be able to wash their hands. Your jobs are about to get a lot more costly and a lot more dangerous. And so I'm again stating for people to contact the governor, to contact the Illinois Commerce Commission at 1-800-524-0795. Again, that number is 1-800-524-0795. The reason that this is super important is not just because of the pandemic, but because right now we have gone to largely remote education. We have a strained state budget. And when only a certain segment of the community is denied an education, that is the basis of a federal lawsuit. Decatur Public School Systems has been sued in federal court over shutting down only part of their program. What's going to happen to the state of Illinois when they allow power to be shut off for only some of the families, effectively removing their children's access to safe remote education during a pandemic? This is both something that the Illinois Commerce Commission can do, although they've tried to deny it and then later admitted that they could. And this is something that the governor's office can do, although they've tried to deny it, and the Illinois Commerce Commission in a panic outed them yesterday that they had the power to do this. Urbana's legal staff, as a home rule government, stated that they can add steps to the eviction process and to the utility shutoff process so that they can at least protect their communities a little while longer, if not stop the process entirely. Urbana's shutoffs from Ameren, Illinois is on September 4th. Decatur and Springfield shutoffs from Ameren, Illinois is on September 11th. This is going to cause a cascading increase in COVID cases because people cannot stay safely housed. They cannot cook their food. They cannot wash their hands.
One more minute, Mr. Axelrod.
Thank you for that guidance. So I'm asking for emergency measures to also be considered explicitly for this. Each and every one of you, without the approval of anybody else on this council, can advocate. The Macon County Democratic Party just confirmed that they approved a resolution opposing utility shutoffs without even exercising any authority. You all can do the same. Please act. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor Bruno, I see two more hands raised, and I'm going to enable the next speaker to speak, Justin Hendricks. So please remember to state your name and city of residence.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. Greetings, everyone. My name is Justin Michael Hendricks, Parkland College student, creative homeowners, new homeboy, state advocate. I'll start by saying Champaign and surrounding cities.
Mr. Hendricks, what city do you reside in?
Champaign, Illinois. I'll start by saying blue lives don't exist. Stop drawing the equivalence between racial identity and a job. As your career is a choice, being black and brown is not. I know Blue's Clues, Blue Ivy, Blue Cheese, the Smurfs, and even the Blue Man Group. But no, blue lives, no, my love. Dijon Kinsey was held up and shot multiple times this week by Blue Lives while we still protest for Jacob Blake, Breonna Taylor, and Aaliyah Lewis, and many others. But Blue Lives don't want to hear that, right? These same Blue Lives that killed Breonna Taylor and Kewan Carrington, yet R.T. Finney and Daryl Norbitz haven't done anything in the community to make out change outside of anything but making statements against Black boys and Black lives for a retirement pension and a poorly inconsiderate, non-compassionate letter in the News Gazette from Militia's Mary to racially report once again. I'm still waiting on the replies from the News Gazette. And Mary, we see you lurking on our Instagram stories and ignoring our tweets. Speak back. Back the blue in which the acronym stands for Back the Blue, no, Back the Black Lives for Ultimate Extinction. That's what that means. As these Blue Lives brigades didn't show up at any events, protests, or rallies in support of Black lives, brown bodies, or LGBTQ people, even women and children. Don't believe to ask me? Ask those Blue Lives supporters and if they supported the Her Urbana's Women March in June, or even the Pain to Peace educational rally, which they gave out supplies for children. Any council members attend the Back to Blue protest besides the mayors that want to come out and come forward? Because I'm very upset I didn't know about your attendance. I believe statements would be great as well. Furthermore, have these Blue Lives donated to Homos and New Homeboy to support the pantry that Marshall has created in our community for hygiene packs? If I check the score on the board, it would be 3-0, and it's all no's. So that goes to show you Blue Lives isn't anything but an insecure white man's mentality of fear to lose any sense of power that they may have by covering up their fragility behind leather chaps, motorcycles, no masks, tattoos, bare feet, and beards, both kind of beards at that. WCIA and other media news outlets, if we check the history books, it was Rita who initiated the first protest at the police station. So don't disservice us by asking us distasteful questions about why we returned to the police station when she initiated the first protest there first. Ask them why they approached us after we've been there first in the beginning. Instead of backing the blue, use that same energy and back the Black lives to eliminate the use of Black lights in our community, blue lights in our community by ending gun violence, racial disparities, and more. It's not only Blue Lives, but also we're the organizations and churches that's supposed to back Black lives as well. I'm calling y'all out too. I'm also calling out the U of I and the athletic departments to step up and step out. There's more than just making a protest after our clout. Don't just clout chase, come out, come to our community, do more than what you just did. You should be ashamed of yourselves for not doing more than engage with the community. Anybody can protest and walk down the street. Do more than just cross university. Come into our homes, come see about us. If you're claiming to have events, enter the community with respect. Don't just have a place to come out for collegiate lynchings and social media trends or a photo op. If I may ask, why haven't you all been to neighborhoods recently from falling gun violence, or do you need a practice for that? We are the protectors of the community, not just the protesters. Get it right. The streets have spoken, and those seats, I believe, soon to be up. So get ready, and I'll be, if so be, as the people's mayor, if need be. As I've always said, for a diverse group of individuals, also for this council, which you need another study session for. I didn't forget about our streets as well. We still need those painted too. You don't need study sessions for that long as well. It's not an exam either. If you're worried about livelihoods and complicating 4 lives, think about Rita in her home for 8, and all of us have been out here, yet we're still healthy. We've been out on the street since May, and we're still healthy once again. What's your excuse? The city don't give y'all good health insurance. Chief of Police, U of I, and board, we're ready to meet. What's holding y'all back? We can be maxed up, and we can also social distance wherever you want to be. Stop the gun violence and school to prison pipeline that create the system. Also, the U of I needs to invest in our communities. Black and brown livelihoods are here. Also, Unit 4, you should be ashamed of yourselves for feeling racial tactics, silently solidarity between schools and the community as it serves, most importantly, Black and brown bodies. You are a disservice. How dare you say those statements behind closed doors? Also, for the Back to Blue members, you can also support us and donate to our funds. And give me the loot. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I now see 4 hands raised, and I will be opening up the mic for the next speaker. AJ, please remember to state your name and city of residence.
Yeah, my name is Adam Perot. I reside in Champaign, Illinois. My experiences here in Champaign with activism has been less than satisfactory. I started protesting and chalking at the Rogue Barbershop. Shortly after we started, a municipality was passed to try to silence protesters. I still think it's complete BS that no one has talked about that, as to who passed that to try to silence protesters. Shortly after that, everyone started calling it vandalism and violence, and the discussion, rather than discussing police brutality and murders that have happened here in Champaign against Black people, the conversation has shifted towards what we have done, which in the grand scheme of things, it is not violent. It is not vandalism. We've sat there and chalked a day, and it rained right after, and it came off very easily. And yet y'all have spent thousands of dollars bringing out pressure washers and this and that to clean it up. And even if someone did show up with something that was not water soluble, when you have things like this, you can't control what every single person does. And what one individual does, you cannot generalize an entire group for. Sounds kind of familiar to me. This is a serious problem, and there are active threats against our group as well on Facebook. People saying that they're going to shoot other people in our group and things like that. Our group does not say things like that. We do not have that kind of hate. So when the media and when the mayor and anyone for that matter wants to paint the coalition in a bad light, rather than looking at why it's happening in the first place, it says a lot about our society. And if you do not see that, then you are part of the problem as well. That's all I have to say.
I'm unmuting the mic for the next speaker, Drake Matere. Please remember to state your name and city of residence.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Drake Mateer, and I am a graduating senior at the University of Illinois. And because there are some people who would like to question my capabilities and my knowledge, I'm graduating senior with a BS in community health, and community health is more needed now than ever. But I wouldn't expect white people who protest masks to understand that. So yes, community health for those who are wondering and asking. As a student at the university, I would like to call out the University of Illinois for their charade and their farce to the Champaign Police Department, as Malcolm called the farce on Washington. I'm going to call it the farce to the Champaign Police Department, because how can you have a protest for Black lives, but then hose down the chalking? Again, not a form of vandalism, no violence whatsoever, but a form of self-expression, a form of artistic self-expression. After 30 minutes to an hour of our protest from people within the community and students, ran by the community and students, you tried to silence us, but then tried to bring out the Black football players to make them, again, to use them as token, as to be politically incorrect as possible, token Negroes in this situation. I call you out, University, and I call you out, Chancellor Jones, as well, because you are a Black man and you know who I am, and you did not respond to my email when I invited you to the welcome. So I call you out on the table. You put out into the News Gazette that you will be masked up, socially distanced at the protests and the marches to ensure that students are heard. I'm not sure about the one with the U of I department, the athletics department, but you sure as hell were not at, my fault, you sure were not at the protest that was run by community leaders and students at the university. CCR has been the vanguard of the movement here in Champaign. And for anybody to try and not ask the community for input to ensure that the marches have an end goal, to ensure that they are not charades, and to ensure that they are not parades, and just shows of basically present-day minstrel shows to give us the illusion of being on our side. U of I call you out. And I call out the mayors again for not coming out to chalk, but they were able to go out to a Back the Blue protest. And again, there were threats against Black women. There are threats against Black people, Black and brown people at that rally. We have been going at it this whole summer, but you too were only allowed to leave your apartments or leave your house, the privilege of your homes, to go to a Back the Blue protest. I call you out, mayors. And again, if you all do not come to our demands that we have said, the 10 demands, No longer asking, what do we want? And stop asking, why don't we go to you? You are supposed to be the leader. You go to the people. We have better civic engagement than you do. The university, I have better civic engagement than you do. You have neglected the community for so long, and I am so happy with other students, so happen to be the one that connects the community and student campus, and we are going to force you, the university, to give back, not to just Black and brown students, but to most importantly, the Black and brown communities of Champaign-Urbana who need it the most. You will no longer push Black and brown communities out, and you will no longer exploit student lives, and you will no longer exploit the building service workers' lives. No longer will you exploit the graduate employees. You will no longer exploit your people, your workers that keep the university moving. And City of Champaign, you will no longer neglect the voices of the people. You will listen to the people, and you will better your civic engagement the same way that CCR has done better civic engagement in my time being here for the 4 years. But I have seen what true community is, and true community has not started within the institutions or the walls or the confines of the university, nor has it found itself in the confines of the political structures that is Champaign and Urbana. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I see 2 more hands raised, and I will now enable the microphone for Rita Connerly. Please remember to state your name and city of residence. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rita Connerly. I reside in Champaign, Illinois. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Your actions are louder than your words. I question what matters to you, racial equality or police injustice. I ask this because you have shown your support to Back the Blue by attending a rally at Lincoln Square Mall. When you looked around at that rally, what did you see? Let's be honest, predominantly white supremacy. A group that in private on Facebook has expressed their intentions of being violent, from the use of water pressure as they did in the 50s, to shooting in places that CCR or me, myself, specifically with my children will be at. It is not enough to say you aren't racist. Just because you've attended a Black Lives Matter rally or you work with Black and Indigenous people of color, you believe all lives matter. You have to declare that these same lives, Black and brown lives matter. As our elected officials, you have a duty to uphold the reflection of what our community is, and that is supposed to be open and inclusion of the people in this space. You're supposed to seek to make it better, and that every place is accepting of all people, and that is specific to Black and brown people. My children have asked, why are we, Black people, treated so bad? The only response that I can give them is because of our skin tone. So as a parent, knowing that my children can identify that there is an issue, clearly you guys don't see that. So you damn right, we want reparations. And those could start by implementing CCR's demands. We have 10 of them. I think that you know what they are. 1, starting with defund the police. Have you guys even took the time to ask exactly what that means? You would understand defund the police is not abolishing it, but rather reallocating the funds in a way that the city's budget is more reflective of what the city's values are and putting priority on the people, which is our 10th demand, a people's first approach. Additionally, we want community to have some control. This is our community. And what we have done over the last 4 months is shown you what community looks like. At the several protests that we have hosted, they have been peaceful, they have been diverse, and they look like what Champaign County looks like. How is our city council going to do anything to show something different? What we are doing right now is not in support of Black and brown lives. We do not support Black women. Our media is seeking to make stories on the death of a woman who was violently killed in a shooting 2 weeks ago. How dare they just seek someone in order to make a story that's benefit for them? City, we have to do something different. We clearly see that there is an issue nationwide. I'm currently in another state, but I'm still fighting for what's going on right here in Champaign County, because this is what matters to me. We need racial equity, equality. We need social equality for everyone. Our educational systems, we need reform. We have police officers in our school. Our children are scared to go to school. So I'm asking and I'm challenging our city council members, again, if you have to meet in study sessions, we need our 10 demands met. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I'm going to open the mic now for our last speaker because I only see one more hand raised, and I will allow to talk Meghan McDonald. Please remember to state your name and city of residence.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Meghan McDonald. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
I will find my notes really quick. All right, so my name is Meghan McDonald, and while I now live in Urbana, I lived in Champaign for about 5 years. I'm asking you to reflect on what you can actually do to reflect the needs and demands of your community. Just a reminder that you can propose ordinances that lead to amendments of the city budget. The city budget that has space and money for recruitment firms, marketing, salaries, all and more for more cops in Champaign. The same cops that are not stopping this horrible local gun violence, despite the millions that have been funneled in over the last decade. The same cops that killed Kewan Carrington, the same cops that killed Richie Turner, the same cops that are intimidating protesters while allowing white men to walk around maskless, verbally and physically harassing us as well. I am disappointed that Mayor Finan was at the Back the Blue protest. There have been many protests this weekend that I didn't see her at. I didn't see her at the skateboarding vigil for Anthony Huber, the man who stopped the Kenosha shooter. I didn't see Mayor Finan at the building service workers protest. I didn't see her at the Welcome Back to Champaign CC ARC protest on Friday. I didn't see her at a lot of things this summer, but it's good to know that she prioritized going to the Back of the Blue protest. I'm also disappointed that Mayor Finan is also just so openly supportive of Julia Reitz, the racist district attorney that we have, who is hell-bent on carrying out the school to prison pipeline. I am disappointed that there are no budget amendments yet. There are no prioritization of mental health alternatives. While Urbana's suggestion for the One Door program is lackluster at best, at least, there was a presentation. I haven't seen anything like that for Champaign. There's no reallocation of funds to supplement remote learning needs during a pandemic. There basically just is no engagement aside from CLARISSA FOURMAN showing up a couple times for the CC ARC. There's been no engagement from most of you. No acknowledgement, just more pushback. I am saddened and embarrassed more and more every week to live here. I've been out here every week in the community, helping with mutual aid needs, helping with housing needs, financial needs, food security needs. I've been out here every week since my friend was discriminatorily targeted at the mass arrest at Marketplace Mall on May 31st. Every police force was out. The Champaign police, the Urbana police, Mahomet police, SROs were even out there. School resource officers, they're mistakenly called. This is propaganda that attempts to uphold white supremacy in every area of life, even in schools with our children. An SRO arrested my friend. Let's just call them what they are. Cops in schools that apparently get to go out into our communities. Also, they just get very confused about that. But anyway, I'll keep showing up and I'll bring more people every time. The Champaign County Anti-Racist Coalition, CC ARC, has kept the momentum, the solidarity, the feelings of community up during an incredibly difficult summer, all while being radically and joyfully Black. Anyone who is trying to discredit them, threaten them, silence them is not a leader. Their 10 demands have been listed out for months. If I'm tired, if you're tired, how tired are they? What are you going to do to engage with this community? When are you going to listen? Thank you.
And that concludes the public comment portion of tonight's city council member. Are there any city council members who have comments? Councilmember Foreman.
So I just would like to say that just for the record, I talked to all the council members, and I know that everyone is aware of what is going on and doing the best they can. And I don't think any of us went to the Klan rally. I'm sorry, the Back the Blue rally. I don't believe we were there. So I can't speak for other people. I did not attend the Klan rally. I'm sorry, the Back the Blue rally. I'm happy to support any type of events that the Champaign Police Department puts on, or the Champaign County Sheriff's Office, or any type of police organization that supports our police officers who are doing work in the community. What I will not support is a group who has said they will have firemen turn the hoses on. That's from the 1950s. That's some Emmett Till stuff. It's concerning. I'm alarmed by that behavior, and I'm alarmed that the Klan rally happened. The Back the Blue I'm sorry, I keep getting that mixed up. I'm concerned by that. I am. And so it would be a lie for me to say I'm not. Also, while I have not been able to go to all the protests and attend everything, I still stand by that people's voices need to be heard and we have to do something. But I'm not going to say that what happened at the police department wasn't vandalism. So you're not going to get me to say that. I'm sorry. That's kind of my line with that. And I hope that we can all, kind of just agree to disagree on that one. But I will say that in recent weeks, things to me seem to have been going in a very positive direction. And we do have the CCARC demands. I would like to read those out while I am sitting here. The first demand for CCARC that I received in my email is defund the police. The second is community control. The third is housing for all. The fourth is no jail expansion. The fifth is no cops in schools, which I believe the Unit 4 is working on. 6 is childcare for all. 7 is healthcare for all. 8 is end the ICE raids. 9 is bias training, and 10 is people first. And I'm happy to share that with other council members if you have not seen it, so that you know what the CCARC demands are. But CCARC is not the only group doing things in the community. And so, I don't want anyone to feel not supported, or that we don't go, or that we're not there. So I want to be honest and let you know that I can't be everywhere. And as someone who has 6 kids, I have to say no sometimes, and I have to prioritize my family, which sometimes gets thrown to the second, for city council. So I hope that you will please take that into consideration for every one of us, that we can't be everywhere. And so if we don't go to one protest or don't go to another, the Klan rally don't count. But if you don't go to one thing, please don't take that as, that we're not supportive or that we don't agree with, what's going on. But just like the optics of the mayor going to that rally, those optics, that's the things that we have to take into consideration before we go places. So I want to throw that out there, that we all have to think about those optics. So I would like to note that the police chief was there, and there were several Black police officers that were also at this Back the Blue protest. So I would like to say that, but I will stop short of, I do believe the city council is learning and understanding it as much as they can. And every one of you have heard me out when I've called you and tried to talk to you or tried to discuss something with you. And one of the best conversations I've had recently is when I was talking to Vanna, and she told me that, you don't have to be racist to benefit from racist policies. And that's coming from Vanna Pianfetti. So if she can learn and understand, we all can. Okay. Thank you.
Are there other council comments? Councilmember Beck. You're muted again.
How did I mute and then unmute myself? I unmuted in anticipation of making a comment, and then I muted. Anyway, maybe I should be muted. I want to just say that last week I made some comments that I would love to be made aware of anything that was coming up. And I had a invitation from a community member that let me know about the welcome. I think that you called it the Welcome Back rally that was last Friday. And I was able to go with my husband, and I were able to go together, and it was very peaceful. It was very well organized. I appreciated the bike pathway that was made on either side. You probably don't know, I'm a longtime protester, frequent longtime protester for a very, very long time about many, many issues. And so I'm very well versed and know a good protest when I see one. So that was well done, and I appreciate it very much. So I think that one of the things that, Councilmember Foreman said, really resonates with, I know me and a number of others who we have a lot of things going on that we have to attend to. And this, of course, is at the top of my list, and I want it to be a priority. And we want to come to as many things as we can, and we want to be present. But I'm hoping you can offer the grace to us that we can't always be at everything. And so I did not attend the anti-Black Lives Matter protest because it was that was an active decision on my part, because it was not an event that I thought was relevant to making change in our community, and certainly was not something that I felt like I wanted to support. So I do want to make that statement. I don't know of any other council member that actually attended that other than the mayor. So, there's that as well. So, and I don't want to speak for them, but I don't know of anybody that did. So at any rate, I'm going to continue to do my best at attending events that exist. And, I hope that what we can do is to have a dialogue as well. So, when I'm there, I hope that I'll be wearing my name tag, so you'll know it's me. And I will try to engage with people that I can engage with. And I hope that you also will seek me out. So thank you.
Are there any other council comments this evening? Seeing none. City manager? You have any comments, city manager?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
May I please have a motion to approve the vouchers?
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I move that we approve the vendor payments in the amount of $1,868,562.24.
Second.
Is there any comments about that? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Beck,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
And I'm a yes, and the vendor payments, otherwise known as the vouchers, are approved 8-0. May I please have a motion regarding the payroll?
Yes, I move that we approve the payroll of August 21st, 2020 in the amount of $1,930,080.75.
Second.
All in favor, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Beck,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
I'm a yes, the payroll is approved 8-0. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
Deputy Mayor Bruno, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Councilmember Beck,
Yes.
Briggs,
Yes.
Gladney,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Kyles,
Yes.
Pianfetti,
Yes.
Stock,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bruno.
And I'm a yes, and the motion to adjourn passes 8-0. Stay safe, everybody. See you next week. The meeting is over.